So what's up everyone on YouTube? TheMainManSWE here, hoping you're all doing awesome as always. And it's my great honor to be joined yet again by Arya from Blasted Salami. Welcome, buddy.
Thanks so much for having me, man. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, no, it's always great to talk to you. And I thought we could talk about Season 4. That seems to be, you know, the obvious topic. I know you had a podcast yesterday, and maybe you've talked the subject to death, you yourself. But yeah, if you're all right with dissecting that yet again.
Not at all. So it's a really fun topic to talk about, actually. And yeah, we had a really long podcast with it on Season 4 yesterday with Cuddlecore, Mihawk, Fergus, Spag came in later, so did Frame Whisperer. So it was lots of very different opinions there, and it was a fun chat. I'll be uploading it later. But I think the thing that we focused on mostly for that chat wasn't the online functionality, even though I think that was the highlight of the trailer. That was really exciting to see, and I was really glad that they focused on that specifically. But the focus of that chat was the direction of the balancing changes we'd like to see for Season 4.
Right. I just also wanted to point out, now that you're here, also to just thank the community for the incredible support you've shown Blasted Salami, the team, the last few days. I mean, I've seen myself, their Patreon go up quite a bit, so I just wanted to say big thanks. I mean, I also feel personally very invested in Arya's work, just because I'm such a fanboy. So thank you so much, everyone.
Yeah, I can't begin to thank everyone enough for that. I mean, a week ago, I think I chatted with the main man about some of the issues we were having with making videos, and that it was kind of it was unsustainable, really, to put out videos like that. And then that built up momentum, and there was a thread about it on Reddit, and that picked up even more momentum. And in the past week, our patronage has tripled, and that's changed so much. Like yesterday or 2 days ago, I managed to sit down and do a full day of editing, like morning to evening, and I can't remember the last time I was able to do that without having to stop and look at the clock and think, oh shit, you know, I gotta go and do some lessons. There wasn't this veil of anxiety over me. I could just sit down, edit, and I really got into it. I really enjoyed it, and I can't begin to thank the community enough for that. You know.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Being a sorry for interrupting you. I just wanted to chime in that, yeah, being a content creator, really a struggle. And when we do what you did, you know, and say like, oh, I'm gonna focus on this now, I'm gonna go full time into content creation, like that's one hell of a gamble. And especially if you have a family, I know you have a wife, it's like, it's pretty serious stuff. And when your Patreon was at 500 per month and you have a goddamn team, it's like, it's not you alone. For sure, when I see like the amount of hours that goes in, I can only imagine what you're feeling when you're sitting there grunting away, and you know that I still gotta pay the bills, you know, I've been editing for 10 hours today. Should I have been going to my regular job just to get some decent money? Because I mean, $500 is nothing when you divide it by the hours you've put in. So it must have been stressful. So I'm just, as you said, it's so nice to know that you have some serious backing now, and you're gonna feel less stress looking at the watch.
Yeah, no, I even my wife mentioned this the other day, just how much lighter I appear, I feel. It's this huge burden off my shoulders. So yeah, personal quality of life has gone up tremendously in that respect, and there is going to be more content on the channel too. So again, I can't begin to thank everyone enough for that. And yeah, I don't know what else to say, but thank you.
No, I'm so happy for you, and I'm so happy for the community, to be honest, because we're only helping ourselves here. So thanks, everyone. So yeah, back to the topic. Like, so on the podcast, you discussed the balancing the most of Season 4. So what are you hoping for there? And are you also, I'm not personally, but a lot of people have told me they're afraid of these new moves, and they feel like, oh God, how is that going to help the balancing situation? Isn't that going to make everything needlessly complicated? How do you feel personally about new moves for everyone?
Of the moves that we saw in the trailer, none of them struck out to me as being particularly OP or game changing. The most useful one seemed to me like Kazumi's forward 1. It seemed it's similar to Kazuya's forward 2, in that she was lacking a good pushback Punisher, and now she has that, and now that's great. The Horang hop kick from Right Flamingo seems very situational. It's basically, if Horang used to do his Right Flamingo forward 4 on block, you could basically get a free down 4 on him. And that is to fill in that very niche, specialized little hole in his offense. He still retains his core weaknesses, as always with Horang.
Right.
The other moves, Paul's mid power crush, but going by the other power crushes in the game, it's probably going to be very unsafe on block. Look, the thing with we're going to talk a bit about this later, but if they do something about forward 1+4, I'm okay with that.
Oh yeah, you mean his teleport shoulder barge into a Death Fist?
Yeah, that shit is dumb.
When I eat that move and Paul does it, and suddenly he's at my back and knocks me down, I immediately think of like Mortal Kombat and Scorpion actually teleporting. That's pretty much what that move is to me. It's like he just immediately is at your side or back, and it's not even launch punishable. It's -14, right?
It's -14, so most characters can't launch punish it. It's very evasive, and the main problem with it is that it doesn't. He's not meant to be that kind of defensive, evasive archetype. When you think of Paul, you think of 50-50s, Demo Man, Death Fist. You don't think of down forward 2 keep out and crazy evasion. It's jarring. It's weird.
But that's sort of what he's become a little bit. Like the down for 2 with its incredibly obnoxious high crush, and Kurosoko forward 1 having quite a lot of crushing. Keep out Kurosoko back 4. And yes, now forward 1+4 having near on teleport qualities. He's changed quite a bit. But I'm a little bit worried about a mid power crush, and especially since it will most likely give a Death Fist follow-up.
If it's suitably unsafe on block, I'm okay with it. And I think the bigger priority again here is forward 1+4. But I imagine the mid power crush. There are other mid power crushes in the game, and they're all quite unsafe and they're all quite slow, and none of them are particularly great. So going by that, I don't think it's going to be a huge problem. I think he has other problems, namely, as we mentioned, down forward 2 and forward 1+4. And going off from that, I'd like to see Season 4 more focused on nerfs. That's the direction of balancing I want to see.
I would agree there. And I also just wanted to note that it was interesting that the new moves we got in Season 3 all seem to be tailor-made to extend combos. But the new moves we see in the Season 4 trailer all seem to be other types of utility. So that seems very welcome to me, at least. But the power creep we saw with the big juggles, I know you want to see nerfs, so you want that sort of taken back a little bit.
I think it's a slight exaggeration to say that, the wall carry between Season 2 and Season 3 is night and day. Yeah, everyone got slightly better wall carry, but the difference is not as much as people make it out to be. What I'm worried is, as you mentioned, the buffs in Season 4 seem to be more about utility, and I just hope all the characters retain very kind of defined strengths and weaknesses. I like when a character has weaknesses. I like having to work around weaknesses. Recently I posted some buffs and nerfs I'd like to see to Steve, and mostly nerfs, actually. I have to make that clear. But people were saying, like, yeah, give him a 15-frame launcher. And it's like, no. No, that's the identity of the character, not like everyone else has a 15 frame launcher. Let's move away from that. Like, don't give Asuka a good low. Please never give Asuka a good low. Like, what direction do you want this game to go in?
Yeah, no, that's something I hear a lot as well. I'm very into Mishimas, so a lot of people want to discuss Mishimas with me. And I don't know how many times people have told me, why, for the love of God, won't they just give Heihachi Kazuya's down back 4 or Devil Jin's down back 2? And I'm like,
because then he wouldn't be
that's
Heihachi
the point
anymore.
of a character. His mids are supposed to be here, and his lows are supposed to be here. If you give him, he has probably the biggest contrast in the game in terms of mids and highs compared to the lows. It's like that's Heihachi. If you give him a good low, it's like, what the hell, you know? He starts resembling everyone else, and well, he's basically overpowered as well. But yeah, you've talked a lot about that you want to see more diversity in the cast in terms of like their gameplay. And how do you feel the diversity is right now with 50 characters and the way they play? Do you feel it's really good compared to prior iterations of a game, or do you feel like Tekken 7 has streamlined the cast a lot?
I really feel like too many characters are too well-rounded at the moment.
Yeah,
it's come to a point where it's very hard to see distinct strengths and weaknesses in these characters, especially when you start going to the top tiers, when you start going to like the upper half of the cast. Like, everyone just has everything, and it's become a bit homogenized. I don't want to say that like all the characters are exactly the same. No, clearly, like, you know, if you compare Lei with like a Mishima or Mardak, no, they're clearly different. But it's been heading in that direction, and it's inevitable when you have a huge roster like this. I would infinitely prefer to see a smaller roster, more focused roster, a downsized roster, remove the fluff, remove duplicates. To an extent, duplicates I think are fun. I mean, when you talk about Mishimas, for example, I think it's interesting how you have one central archetype and variations on that. But by and large, I would like to see a smaller roster of more distinct characters. I think that's more interesting.
Yeah, I'm actually hoping for Tekken 8 they remove
TMM sup.
Devil Jin and Heihachi, so that you only have Jin and Kazuya, father and son. They're very distinct. They're very much their own characters, although Mishima-esque, you know, with Jin. And it kind of serves the story as well, because it's most likely going to be about Jin and Kazuya. And yeah, I think if we want to shrink down the roster, we got to get rid of some of our favorites as well. And I would be willing to give up Heihachi and Devil Jin, although I love the characters. What characters would you remove? Like, if we suddenly were like, oh, we're going to shrink it down to 25 characters, like, what characters stand out to you in terms of, like, this character doesn't add anything? This character is not interesting. For me, Shaheen is, like, almost at the top of the list.
Mr. Generic.
Bland. Yeah, so bland.
I'm going to have to say a lot of the new characters. A lot of the new characters are, I mean, Leroy, Shaheen, maybe, like, you know, is there a reason to have King and Armor King? I'd rather just I'd say, I think Armor King is a cooler design, so I'd rather just have Armor King. Like, give Armor King a really strong throw game like King. Give him, you know, make him a bit less kind of well-rounded. Just make him, you know, I just want really distinct strengths and weaknesses. So any clone type characters like that. Maybe between the Williams sisters, I mean, Anna, perhaps. I don't think you need to have Law, Lee, and Shaheen, 3 slidey characters. Yeah, Shaheen can go, I think.
Yeah.
Let's see. Maybe just one meter-based character. So between now we have Akuma, Geese, and Elisa, but I don't think any of those will come back. And despite the fact that I do actually like Akuma, I think he's a very bold and interesting choice. And I think, despite the fact that he still has major problems, I really, you know, appreciate the fact that they tried to do something genuinely new. But again, I don't think he'll be coming back in the Tekken 8. I doubt it. He's too controversial at this point.
But I absolutely see what you're saying there with keeping a meter-based character, because that gameplay is so interesting and it's so unique in Tekken. But at the same time, there's been this enormous backlash against the 2D characters. So it would be sort of a risk in them, you know, keeping that character archetype for Tekken 8. But to you, it's kind of a no-brainer to keep it?
Yeah, because I think it really brings something genuinely different. I mean, I talked a bit about this on that Tekken 8 wish list, but I threw out this idea of maybe having Jin and Devil Jin fused. So you would have a character with a transform command. And Devil Jin is more focused on offense. Jin is more focused on, neutral, space control, defense. Yes. And yeah, something like that. I really would like to see each character have a distinct facet of their game plan like that, and not make it gimmicky either.
Yeah. I was also brainstorming a little bit on a stream where I talked about reducing to 25 characters, and I also said that Devil Jin could just be a transformation for Jin, as in, you know, Devil Kazuya with Kazuya. And it would be nice to have it like, I don't know if you've ever played Bloody Roar, but make it so that the transformation is actually very viable, you know, and has a lot of utility, and you see it quite often. It can carry between rounds depending on the circumstances. And can you imagine how complicated the character and interesting he would be if Devil Jin actually retained his moveset and Jin retains his, and you transform it and it's like a pretty fucking different character. Like, man, the amount of time you would have to put in to learn to play him and to counter him.
Yeah, because you'd have to pick. I mean, I think they'd have to distinguish Jin and Devil Jin even more. Like they did a patch recently where, of course, all Mishima's God Fist was their whiff recovery was reduced, and I really disliked that because it kind of made the Mishimas more well-rounded. Before, you couldn't just throw out Electric Wind God Fist as a keep-out tool. They were designed to be these aggressive characters centered around their wave dash. But now, you know, you can just kind of throw out God Fists all day, and it's very hard to whiff punish it. So what I would do, for example, is I would make Devil Jin's defensive tools weaker. Like, make his God Fist quite easy to whiff punish. But I'd make Jin's offensive tools weaker as well. So, like, you perform a knockdown with Jin, and it's like, okay, I want to take the life lead now. Then you transform to Devil Jin. You get a bit of a life lead. And then you knock them down again, turn back to Jin. Okay, now you got to come to me. You know, you have to be very careful about a character like that, because they could either be very strong or very weak. But there are characters like that in fighting games. Zeku, for example, he started out weak, but then they tuned him, and now he's consistently in the top 10, and he's very fun and very interesting and very layered. And there's a character like that in Grand Blue as well. So it can work. That archetype does work. And it's always fun.
Right. So I have to be annoying now and do quite the leap to a completely different topic. But I just wanted your opinion on the stream where the roundtable with the Japanese fighting game developers, where we got the announcements. Obviously, Bandai Namco at the very end did a good job and lived up to the sort of hype, you know, that had been generated. They showed trailers. But to everyone who watched that event, they know that trailers was actually not a God-given right during that roundtable. Every developer prior didn't even show moving images. They just showed slides. You know, this is a sale.
Like coming in August.
Coming soon, you know, news coming soon on a slide, you know, or like, oh, this is an upcoming tournament. What did you feel about that? And does it say anything about a lack of like enthusiasm in all of those other developers, that you could immediately tell that Harada and Soul Calibur, they were like, no, less talk, you know, here's a trailer. Of course, COVID was a hindrance to us all, but our fans have expectations. We've worked really hard. Here's a trailer. But with Capcom, SNK, all of those others, it was more like, here's a slide, well, fuck you, COVID was annoying. Is there like a lack of ambition there or connection with the fans?
I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Perhaps putting this together was... It seems like maybe Bandai Namco took the initiative on that because they were clearly the most prepared. In which case, I can't begrudge Capcom and SNK for being a little bit unprepared.
Right.
Yeah, maybe they were just, forced into a situation, and now they have egg on their face, unfortunately, or rather set them up. But yeah, like, I can't begrudge them too much, especially in this situation with COVID. I mean, you got to have sympathy for developers now, and just the fact that they were there. I mean, the fact that they're willing to. But that was the thing. I thought a lot of the talk kind of really went nowhere. It was fluff. It didn't really say anything.
Yeah.
I found myself very, very bored for the first half until they started showing trailers.
Yeah, no, it was grueling. I mean, where I am, globally, we were up pretty damn late, and I expected slightly higher production values. I thought the stream itself looked very what's the word here? Yeah. Low quality for considering the companies involved. And then you have a roundtable discussion, taking questions from Twitter, and then everyone giving these very corporate, protective answers that didn't really say anything. And as I told you when we spoke yesterday, it's like, if you have that many people, it's like no one's really ever gonna get into the nitty-gritty on every topic. It's just gonna be this surface level opinion on everyone, and then you go to the next topic before you can dissect things.
Yeah, it did feel very corporate, very safe. I wish they would have picked more daring, controversial answers. I wish they would have been a bit less restrictive, but this is Japanese business culture. It's not going to change anytime soon. I guess it's a nice step in the it's a step in the right direction that they're even doing this, but I would prefer just trailers, to be honest.
Yeah. So do you think we're gonna get like 3 new characters on top of everything else that was mentioned?
Potentially. I mean, I'm just glad actually that in contrast to like the Soul Calibur trailer where it's all about Setsuga, the Strive trailer where it was about Leo Whitefang and the new character, that actually Tekken didn't focus on new characters. It focused on functionality, because everyone was saying this game needs better online functionality, and they clearly listened, and they're like, well, here it is. And that was great. That was great.
Yeah, but I couldn't fucking believe we got it. I mean, I've been talking about that, I don't know on how many videos. Like, I really hope they do something about the, overall general functionality of a game. But I never thought they would, because it would be so much easier to just make content you can sell. Like, characters are very appealing and you sell them. But if you improve like the online netcode, online prowess, Wi-Fi indicator, all of that stuff, it's not stuff you sell as a package. It's more of a, we're improving something you've already bought. So I think that's a tougher sell for them to devote hours to with the team. So I'm just so pleasantly surprised. Yeah.
No, I am too. And but I think it kind of makes sense for a game that's in season 4. Because, of course, a character trailer is going to be more quote-unquote hype, yeah? And especially for a casual audience, having a new character, having something tangible you can really see, oh, that's exciting. But 4 seasons in, the people who are still playing Tekken are the people who have stuck with it for 4 years. And, it's become more niche, it's become more focused towards a target audience. What is that target audience asking for? Better online. Here it is. So I think it made sense, and it made sense for the game, and it made sense for the community. And I'm glad that they were listening and they're receptive to that.
Right. And I'm certain you heard that the upcoming balance patch, it will not be one big balance patch in conjunction with Season 4.
Multiples.
How do you feel about that?
I don't know really what to make of that. I mean, it's. I guess it's. There are positives and negatives. I mean, it gives them more time to deliberate over each change, but at the same time, it's always exciting to have here's season 4. All the characters are different. Let's go through it. I suppose it's more out of necessity than choice due to the COVID situation. I guess they had to break up their workload into more manageable chunks. So again, I can't really begrudge them on that. Though I would prefer one big seasonal patch.
Me too, but I wonder if it's also due to the community being so vocal, and we now know that Bandai Namco absolutely can change their mind if the outcry is big enough. So do you think it's sort of like a little test nugget at a time?
Maybe.
Rather than
I hadn't thought of
that big
actually.
bomb, that could be torn to shreds. They feel like it's better to go one little step at a time and see if there's an outcry with every...
I think if they wanted to avoid outcry, it's easier to throw it all out there at once, because
I think
then
so.
something can slip. Yeah. I mean, because potentially, people are, because there are so many things to focus on, right? I think if you release patches in for example, with the Mishima Hell Sweep and Godfist patch that was so criticized, if that was in the middle of like 10 pages of patch notes, it would have been slightly less controversial, I think. Quite a bit less controversial. But because there was one patch and that was pretty much the only thing they did, all focus was on those particular changes.
You do have a point there, yeah.
Though, I think the biggest surprise, the most pleasant surprise would be if we got Season 4 came and the patch notes we got were actually like, hey, this is why we made these changes. This is the rationale. That would be the most pleasant change, but I doubt it.
I'd love to have their actual reasoning behind all of the changes included in the notes, a la... I mean, Soul Calibur team does that.
Yeah. And they do that, and I think they could even go further with it. I mean, I think the best example of a team that's done that is Killer Instinct, and they gave like full paragraphs explaining like Keith explained this quite well. Like, for example, in Killer Instinct, Jago, a lot of people used to complain that Jago has this health recovery mechanic, and when he's in Instinct, he recovers quite a lot of his health back when he lands a fireball on you. And people were like, this is OP, remove it. And they didn't actually change it. What they did is they neutered his offense, they neutered his wind kick, because they realized that actually that wasn't the root of the problem. The root of the problem is that he could do that and he could do everything else. And so they, it goes back to the point of a character having distinct strengths and weaknesses.
Right.
Like, no, we want to keep that strength. That's what makes Jago Jago.
And I thought that was so interesting. Sorry, I'm interrupting you, Arya.
No, not at all. No.
Just in line with what you were saying, it's like when they buffed the Hell Sweep, I didn't like it. It removed the complexity and substance from the Mishima gameplay. But it's interesting to note that Hell Sweep, if that tracked, that reinforces the 50-50 playstyle of the Mishimas, basically. And that's fine with Kazuya, in my opinion, because he just lacks the poking, he lacks the other types of offense, and there are a lot of problems with the character. But when you look at a character like Leroy, who, well, basically can do anything, and he still retains a homing Hell Sweep.
Yeah.
I just find that so interesting, that is still there. And it's on a character that already has everything. Whereas, it's too much on Kazuya, but he only has the 50-50 and punishment. It's...
Yeah.
You understand? It's like this very weird hypocrisy. Like,
yeah, I exactly agree. The Hell Sweep actually made sense in the context of what
it makes more sense on Kazuya because it's like he revolves around that and he has such big weaknesses. But Leroy, who doesn't need it, he has a homing Hell Sweep. It's like,
in the context of the direction that Tekken 7 Season 3 was going in, that Hell Sweep actually made sense, and I imagine that's why they gave it to the Mishimas, because hey, tracking Hell Sweeps are now a thing. And the problem with not explaining why you make a change is that, you know, you don't have to explain it to anyone. Like you're not. There's this implication that, yeah, if you don't have to explain the changes, then there's no burden on you really to make them any better. So I worded that terribly, but you can kind of see what I'm getting at here.
Right. So what are the odds that Fakumram and Leroy are changed substantially for Season 4, you think?
Yeah, you know, I'm almost certain there will be. I mean, Leroy has been kind of chipped away out progressively over 2 months. And I still think, given how broad that character is, given his diversity of toolkit, given how much he can do, they should go even further. I mean, you know, the two things that really stand out about that character are, yeah, the tracking hell sweep. I would remove the tracking on that hell sweep. Parry follow-up punches should be punishable on block. And I think down 3-2 should be combo on counter hit only. And then I think he'd be... Yeah, I think they should target his lows, basically. His lows should get the brunt.
Yeah, his low toolkit is... I mean, they've nerfed down to 4 many times, but, like, that's not the only low. It's like... does he have the best lows in the game?
Yeah, it's up there. It's up there. And it just, you know, it doesn't... Even if you nerf the lows, I don't think he'll be a particularly interesting character, which is a shame. But at least he'll be more manageable, you know?
Yeah.
And with Fakumram, you know, this is the thing. We talked about how to nerf Fakumram. Like, Dinosaur thinks they should just delete him because, you know, that character's never going to be interesting. But to me, it seems the real problem with that character is, we talked about this last time, he's very fast, he's very tall, and he completely dominates the neutral. That character has weaknesses on paper. Yes, he has middling panic moves. I mean, the Sabaki is
oh god,
very,
I think your camera is exploding. Or is it only on my end? No, I think your camera is...
Really?
I don't know if it's on my end. Sorry.
Might be. No, I think my camera's fine. It might just be an internet issue.
Yeah.
But so anyway, about Fakumram, he has weaknesses on paper. His high crush is terrible. Like, he has really bad high crush moves. So on paper, characters with a good magic 4 or a back 1 are going to give him trouble. And his panic moves, I mean, his Sabaki is okay, but it's very risky, and it's not very dependable. But if it does land, you know, you get a combo, but it's just too risky. So yeah, panic moves and high crush are supposed to be his weaknesses, but he's so fast and he has so much range that you can never take advantage of those weaknesses, which is why he's dominated the competitive scene so much.
Yeah. No, it's quite a struggle to try and think of, like, legit weaknesses with that character. And yeah, you'll go into some tiny details, but in general, that range, that speed, those frames, that movement. Do you wish they would sort of buff the movement on all characters? Or do you like that certain DLC characters move twice as fast as the rest of the cast? Specifically Zafina and Fakumram. Is it okay that they get, like, a Tekken 5 movement and everyone else is basically stuck in mud?
I would love for the entire roster to have an improved backdash. But the thing is, this game is 5 years old now, and changing the game on a systemic level like that is really gonna... I mean, if you did that, Mishimas would be top tier again.
Oh yeah.
Because backdash to Godfist, I mean, if any character that's game plan revolves around creating whiffs, yeah, like Mishimas, they're gonna be super strong, like they were in, you know, Tekken 5 and Tekken Tag 2. But I'd like to see that. I mean, I think it's okay, actually, for Mishimas to be top tier. I'd rather see top tier Mishimas than top tier Fakumram or top tier Leroy. The most, you know, but they won't do that. They won't do that. Even though I would like to see, instead of nerfing Fakumram's movement, I would love to see everyone have better movement. But it's probably not going to happen. it's too much of a leap for a seasonal update.
Yeah, no, I would love to see that. It would be so interesting. And I think it would push the game in the right direction, because there's this lethal combination right now of reduced movement and very over-the-top moves. It's like both of those limit your options so much if you want to try and play this game defensively or rely on movement. That aspect of the game is still there, but when you compare it to like Tag 2 and those types of games where you don't have attacks like Claudio's back one, and the movement is much faster and more fluid, it's like the defensive ability is so overwhelming in comparison. And I'd love if just to sort of neuter these super attacks, you know, like King Ford 1. I think improved movement would be cool, but as you say, they've balanced the game around a certain type of movement now for 5 years, and it would, it could really, I think, upset balancing to suddenly improve the movement. But I just don't understand, like, who thinks it's a good idea to give Fakuram super movement or Zafina super movement? Where's the reasoning here? Like, why do they get to move twice as fast? And especially Fakuram with his range. Like, why? Yeah. Why them? You get me? It's like,
It's an interesting question. I mean, you know, with Fakuram, I always wonder, and I've talked about this a few times, if a lot of his issues stem from the fact that he was put in a stretching machine before he came out, so people wouldn't laugh at him. Yeah. But like, if there's one thing you could definitely do about Fakuram to nerf him, it's his standing 3. His standing 3 is so ridiculous. It's 13 frames. It takes up half the screen. There's a true mix-up out of it. You can't sidestep, you can't duck. I mean, you are locked in place from there. And his continuations from 3-1 are also very good. I mean, what I would do, I mean, what they should do, I feel, is make the startup on standing 3 like at least 15-16 frames, make the whiff recovery much slower, add a few frames on that, maybe 5 frames, so you can't just throw it out. I mean it's a shame, because with Fakuram, when he first came out, I thought, he wasn't obviously overpowered, but as the community played him, it became clear why he was overpowered. And it was in a way that's very different to Leroy. Leroy was OP in all the ways that are very obvious to see, because his frame data was absolutely bonkers. But Fakuram is OP in the ways that people don't usually talk about. Like, he's very fast, he's very tall.
System.
Exactly. Exactly.
So it was harder to detect, because everyone was just looking at the frames and sort of a range, and everyone's like, mid-high tier, early high tier. But then as soon as everyone realizes, like, the combination of his hitboxes with his movement, with the way hitboxes interact in this game, it's like, he has an absurd advantage. And his broken hitbox was not immediately apparent either.
Right. And unfortunately, it seems like the optimal way to play Fakuram is run around a lot and use standing 3. Yeah. And it's just really boring. It's really boring. So yeah, they, again, if there's one move to target, it's that one. And I think even just targeting standing 3 alone would do a lot to neuter the character.
Right. But he still has so many other tools, and we go back to this problem of, like, how do you even balance it? And I also wanted to get your opinion on, I made a video 1.5 months ago, I don't remember exactly where I said that. I made the claim that Tekken 7 DLC is sort of pay to win. You know, the upper row of character select with the DLC. It's like many of those characters are offenders in a way, and like they have tools no one else has, and most often very easy to use and just absurdly powerful. Do you feel? I mean, I got a lot of people who agreed with me. I got some people who disagreed. Like, how do you feel about that? Is there a pay-to-win aspect with the Tekken 7 DLC?
The one thing that's clear with the newcomers, and this is not just the DLC. It even goes back to OG Tekken 7, all the newcomers. One feature that's present in pretty much all of them is their range. And
Yeah.
you touched on this earlier with moves like King's Forward 1. You have a game with weakened movement and plus attacks with longer range.
Yeah.
And it's clearly intentional because
oh yeah.
Yeah, well, it's clearly an intentional thing. We talked about this last time as well. You know,
easiest way to make a beginner beat an expert. It's like neuter his defensive options. Okay, he has better movement than you. What's the easiest way of making you beat this guy? It's just giving you twice the range of a normal Tekken character. With Katarina, Noctis, Negan, there are a lot of characters we could include here, but it's definitely deliberate. It's up the range, nerf the movement, so that the gap between a skilled player and a less skilled player shrinks automatically.
Yeah, and I find it, like, I just find that mentality lazy, insulting, and really misguided. Because you know what? Casual players don't actually care about this.
Oh,
Casual players care.
Obviously they do. It's
no, I
it's
don't
basically,
think so.
you know, on a bicycle, it's like, do you want these, what's it called in English? These extra wheels, you know, to, I mean, it's a crutch.
Training wheel.
It's a crutch.
It's a crutch.
It's like, do you like to win? Yes. Okay, here's a character who's a crutch. It's like, obviously, a lot of people are going to like that. And, you know, have you seen the character usage data on Leroy and Fakum Ram? If it wasn't for Armor King, they would be the most popular DLCs by a mile. And Armor King is carried by his looks, but I think, I mean, Leroy as well, Fakum Ram to some extent, but I think a lot of the sales on Leroy are due to the fact that everyone sort of knows now that he's super strong. Because we know he got increasingly popular, and it's got to be due to, you know, the community just shouting from rooftops that he's completely absurd.
I think we need to separate between casual players, competitive players, and casual players looking to become competitive. Because I think these are three distinct things. Like a casual player, I don't think they care about the game in any way in a competitive level. They don't care about frames. They don't care about range.
Absolutely not.
They just want to see cool, interesting characters. You know, story mode. A universe that's really tangible that you can believe in. Like NRS does this so well. They do a really interesting story mode. And they have interesting endings for their characters. You want good graphics. Yeah, like all the fun bits of a fighting game. Like the vast majority of people playing fighting games, like 90% of them don't give a damn about this stuff.
I agree with you. They don't care about the
Yeah.
frames and the competitive play. I mean, they don't check that out on YouTube or forums. They don't care about that. But I do think they care about winning. Even the most casuals of casuals care about winning. And what I think Bandai Namco knew is that Leroy is going to bring in a lot of casuals again. He's going to get a lot of casual sales. And we're going to make him completely fucking overpowered and easy to use so that everyone who spends their money on Leroy gets to win a lot with no skill. I think that was legit thinking.
Even with Leroy, you have to understand how to even play Tekken to get wins with him. It's not like you can like you know. For example, my wife is a casual fighting game player, and the way she plays is literally she picks up a stick and it's like this kind of stuff, you know.
Yeah.
Even with Leroy, you're not going to be successful with that, right? But she has fun, and that's fine because she likes the characters, she likes the endings, she likes the universe. And again, it's about separating casuals, competitive, and people in that interim. Yeah, people who are looking to get better at this game. Leroy was designed for these people. And you know what? Instead of creating an overpowered character, an overpowered training wheels character, you know what you should have done? You should have made a training mode. You should have made a tutorial to actually teach people how to get from here to here. You know, again, that's why I find it insulting. It's like instead of giving people the tools to get better, you're just assuming that they can't. It's insulting.
I mean, I kind of agree with you, and I think the game should have a tutorial mode, but I think they make crutch characters. It's not even an opinion. I mean, it's you can easily see it if you compare the Tekken 7 newcomers to the easy characters in prior games. Like it's the Tekken 7, the modern easy character. The Tekken 7 easy character is 3 times as easy as that character archetype before it, and I think it's completely obvious that they are simplifying not only the game system, but they're making these immediately accessible characters and making them very strong. And I think there was a pay-to-win aspect with Leroy. I think that they knew he was going to get a lot of casuals. He got a lot of hype. You don't want to disappoint them. The character can't feel weak to them. So I think they made him over the top easy and strong on purpose to give people who picked him up a sense of winning.
Empowerment.
Exactly, and I feel the same is true about Fakum Ram, and there are some other examples of this, and I can't help but feel that it kind of hurts the game, and that's why I feel it's even more insulting to see Fakum Ram an easy character, but he gets all of the fundamental stuff as well. They're like twice as good movement. It's like that to me is so insulting. Like you can give him the bullshit mix-ups and the easy guard break a la Brian or Gigas, but why do you give him also the perfect fundamental tools? It's like that's where I'm like, I just don't get it.
With Leroy, I feel that was a focused, intentional effort to make this character have a tournament presence without question immediately. And they obviously went way too far with that.
Yeah.
So yeah, was it pay to win? Absolutely. I mean, they wanted to sell this character. They wanted him to have a presence in streams. With Fakum Ram, I don't know if it's intentional or not. I get, we talked about a bit about this last time as well, in that he was clearly nerfed from his initial trailer to the final version of him with the whole power crush back forward 4 and whatnot. It really felt like that might have been a consequence of stretching him out, and they didn't know what they had on their hands until, oh my god, what have we created? But yeah, I mean, the fundamental point still remains that like a lot of these characters are just designed to have immense range, to be very easy to play, to kind of have the fundamentals are done for you when you have range like that. You don't need to think about when to use your moves or spacing or anything like that.
Noctis.
When your move takes up half the screen. Exactly. That's Noctis in a nutshell. And he was awful as well when he first came out. I mean, you of all people would know. You looked at a church devoted to the character and how ridiculous he was.
But they did nerf a 50-50. But when he was released, he sort of went under the radar. I didn't see a lot of people talk about him. But then in Season 2, I started playing a lot of ranked with him. And I just noticed that I beat like really, really good players. I fought against Mihawk. His Devil Jin just ran into him in ranked. And I was like, we'll see how he does. And the Aura just completely countered all of his movement. He tried to sidewalk, backdash. In the end, he would just hold back, because no matter what he did, it will always connect on him. And I'm like, okay, so you guys, the Bandai Namco geniuses who've made Tekken, released a character where you press down back 1+2 and it hits 5 meters away and it's almost homing, and big pushback on block, and he has the low down back 2, which knocks down on normal hit, also infinite range. And it's like, and people complain like about a Mishima 50-50 when you have these 50-50s where like you can't step, you can't backdash. It's like
it becomes it's because movement in Tekken's complex and hard, and it's hard to understand. It's very nebulous in a lot of ways, but mid-low, that's pretty easy to understand. It's a coin flip. A lot of other fighting games have taken this direction. You know, the other egregious example is Street Fighter V is also less focused on fundamentals, more focused on zany comebacks and coin flip. You know, it's a trend throughout a lot of fighting games. And you know, let's think of this from a business perspective. Where does your money come from? Well, a lot of your money comes from casual players, and that's the first sale. They buy the game, they want to do the story mode, they want to mess around, they want to have fun, they want to get into the universe, and that's totally cool. And then your other source of revenue is from the devoted, hardcore crowd who go to your tournaments, pay for your merchandise, you know, pay for your DLC. So the question is, how do we turn these casual players into these competitive players? Because you want to turn around on that. You want to turn as many casual into competitive or hardcore players as possible. And look, instead of training wheel characters, instead of characters with swords, instead of characters that take up half the screen and can nip around and kick you from half, you know, from the other end of the universe.
Yeah.
All you need, what you should be doing is good netcode and a good tutorial. That's it. Give players the means to become good players without forcing them to go online and root around and find X guide and this and whatnot. I don't think that should be necessary. I think it should be in the game. That onus shouldn't be on the player.
Like, I completely agree with you. I'd love to see tutorials or, you know, Blasted Salami featured in the game or just somewhere in their social media.
I'm saying it should be...
No. I know you're not trying to promote yourself. I know you're trying to say for the good of a community and the player base, maybe add some tutorial function. But that's obviously not what we're doing, considering it took them so long to even mention frames or to just approach that topic. And then Harada said himself that tutorial modes don't help because no one uses them. And we have data that points to this, you know, so we don't want it. And obviously they're not, you know, running as fast as they can in an effort to finance you guys. So it's like, it certainly points to them maybe not being as interested as we think in converting casuals to hardcores.
Yeah, but that tutorial in Tekken Tag 2, with all due respect, was absolute shite. It taught you nothing. It like...
Yeah, but that was their attempt of keeping it super, super casual to not make anyone afraid, and also do it as interactive as possible with like this mini game thing.
Yeah.
It wasn't Virtua Fighter 4, no.
Even Virtua Fighter 4, I think that's great, very informative, but it's also kind of sterile and bland. Like what you need to do, I think, is respect the customer's intelligence, respect your player's intelligence. Did people think that they'd be like, oh, there are balloons in this tutorial and I can jump over penguins, this is fun? No. It didn't teach you what you needed to know, and it wasn't entertaining either. Anyway, I thought it just smacks of. Yeah, you know, I just found it insulting. I just found it insulting, to be frank.
Yeah, I know. It's like I agree with you, but it's like when the man himself says that we have data to indicate that no one uses tutorials, I don't think he's pulling that out of his ass. And I also felt it was very telling when he said that we tailor-make things now for the majority, rather than focusing on what a select few people want. And it's like when I had the great opportunity to speak to him, and I said that I personally love Tekken 4, and I think that what you guys did to the story there was so amazing, and I know you guys used a writer. It's like, can you please do that again with like dialogue, story-heavy endings? It was so good.
Yeah.
And he just told me, we sort of liked that, but the casuals did not. They did not respond well, and they basically made it clear that they want the classic Tekken 10-second happy CG endings rather than these dialogue-heavy, minute-long story endings. And to me, that was like, oh, fuck off, casuals. But I sort of, I gotta accept it because I can see where he's coming from. Is that, are we maybe exaggerating, like, how much the casuals want to learn about Tekken? Are we maybe being too optimistic? They don't want the big story endings. They want cool CG 10-second CG cutscenes. Maybe they don't want a tutorial mode or become great Tekken players. Maybe they just want a character with crutches like Noctis or Katarina. Press the 4 buttons 6 times and you hit across the stage. Unsteppable. Tracking hell sweeps. You can't step my 50-50. No defensive options. You just gotta guess. So that it's simpler for me as the aggressor. You can't backdash it. You can't sidestep it. I can just force a very simple 50-50 with Leroy. Is that... Do you think it's like they're reevaluating the whole game and it's like we gotta make it immediately accessible for like casuals?
Going back to that point that you mentioned about Harada saying that the nobody's interested in tutorial, the cost doesn't it doesn't justify the cost of creating it. Okay, fine, but you're basing this on metrics from Tekken Tag 2, I assume, and that was terrible. I mean, it's like you haven't done it properly, and now you're saying it's not worth it.
But don't you think he has access to data from other developers as well? That they share this sort of stuff in Japan, like Virtua Fighter 4. How much did it help us to have tutorial mode? How many people used it?
I don't think any developer has done tutorial mode properly. I think, look, if you look at Virtua Fighter 4, it's... There are two elements, basically. It has to be informative and it has to be entertaining, and they're both very important. Virtua Fighter 4 is informative as hell. You'll become a legit good player, but it's dry, it's sterile. It's like it's dry crackers. You know, it's so boring. And then there's the Tekken Tag 2 one, which is just awful. It doesn't do anything. So. Yeah, I don't think anyone's done it properly yet. Xrd did a pretty good stab at it, but it's not all-encompassing. And even that, there are lots of ways I think it could improve. And Xrd's too much of a niche game to really get traction going. You need a game like these big kind of headliner games like Street Fighter and Tekken to do it correctly before it becomes commonplace. The best tutorial I can think of is, again, we keep talking about this, Killer Instinct, and that's a good, really good fundamentals tutorial. But really, I think tutorials should be centered around characters. That's the most interesting thing for people. That's why people love fighting games. That's why they get into them competitively. They fell in love with the character. They want to explore it in and out. So you want to have a fundamentals-based tutorial, and then you want to have character-focused tutorials as well.
I think you're completely correct there, and like use that structure where like chapter 1 tutorial, maybe 10 chapters, keep it quite kind of brief, and just chapter 1 is like, in general, this is Kazuya. He hits hard. He has a minimalist approach. He hits once but hard, and he likes to mix lows with hard hitting mid. Just the characters are really cool. It's just that you don't really get a sense of a character going into a move list and just seeing 100 billion attacks. Yeah. It's just so nice to just have a couple of sentences saying, King is a wrestler, his throw game is incredible, the giant swing, it's in essence, who is this? Like,
there's a lot of kind of, you have to remember that Tekken has its roots in the arcade scene, and there was a real kind of legitimate business rationale between keeping this game opaque and having a veil of mystery behind it. So, back in the day, we didn't have frame data, and you didn't know why you lost, and you just had to keep pumping in coins until you understood why. And I'm pretty sure I read an interview with Harada somewhere where they were talking about like he said like Heihachi's moves feel like they have a lot of weight and power to them, and something might even be negative on block, like Heihachi's forward too, but you won't know that until you look it up. And there seems to be this sense that if you give the players the frame data, they're gonna turn into Arslan Ash. There's gonna be Arslan Ashes everywhere. They're all gonna overrun Evo, and it's outdated thinking. It's outdated thinking. Like knowing. Mihawk made this beautiful analogy yesterday that giving players frame data is like giving them the materials to build a house. Yeah, but and then the end goal is to build the house, but the frame data are the resources and the equipment needed to do it. It's like pointing in the right direction, but the player themselves still need to make that journey.
Right. But I think there's this pride with the Tekken team and Harada in the animations of Tekken, and that the animations are there to tell the story. And this is what he told me, that Heihachi on purpose, you know, has these big over-the-top, you know, attacks and over-the-top animations, and the enemy is always in a block stun, and they sort of want to create this very overwhelming feeling, and he feels that putting in frames kind of detracts from that. I'm not saying he's correct there, I'm just saying that they always feel like they want to keep this mysticism with Tekken, and that it is very ambitious in terms of animation, Tekken. I would very much say that compared to other fighting games, and that maybe they feel that adding frames would be counterproductive. Yeah. I mean, I don't agree, but it's like you can sort of see a little bit where he's coming from.
I want to say, like, you mentioned something about story earlier, and that Tekken 4 had an actual writer, and that's one of the reasons the story was so interesting. And there's a lot of potential with Tekken characters. There's a lot of family drama. There's a lot of potential to make a good story here. And Tekken 7 clearly didn't. And the point of this is that if you want a good story, get a professional writer. If you want a good tutorial, get a professional educator. And it's clear that no one's
someone's promoting himself. No, but I'd love that. I'd love that. I mean, Arya is a teacher, for those of you who don't know.
Yeah, and it's like I've done this for 10 years, and that kind of informs how I make videos, because the basic idea of any good tutorial is start broad and then narrow down into the details.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And I haven't seen a single tutorial do that. You know, start with the overview and then go into the granular tidbits.
Not to shit on the good gentleman speed kicks on Leffen, but I just gotta mention it. Speaking of how you construct a good tutorial, I thought it was so funny when I watched Leffen's very good and fair review of Tekken 7. He played it for a week. For those of you who don't know, Leffen is a very famous Swedish Smash player. It was so funny when he said, and then you look at Tekken tutorials, and often it's very clunky formulated, but here I found a perfect tutorial for Tekken, and he referred to Speed Kick's video on Kazumi, I think it was, and he said, this is basically how a Tekken tutorial should be. Look, Speed Kicks here, he starts the tutorial in a perfect way, explaining all the punishes. And Speed Kicks just starts this tutorial by saying, this is her 10 frame punish, this is 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, this is while standing 11, this is while standing 14, this is while standing 15. Oh, that's the basic of a character. And I'm like, completely off. Worst way you could ever start a Tekken tutorial, in my opinion. And it's just for what you just said, that you want the general idea of the character in a few sentences, and then you deconstruct it from there. Like, okay, what is basic offense with this character? What is basic defense? And then you deconstruct those into next multiple chapters. It's like, rather than, this is detailed punishment, you know, because that obviously, that's how a pro player approaches the game. Speed Kicks and Life, and it's like, first thing I want to know when I pick up a new character is, what's my punishment? But that's the mind of a pro player. That's not the mind of that casual you want to invest more time into the game.
Yeah, you have to kind of put yourself in the position of someone who's never seen this character before, and you have to create a roadmap for them that makes sense organically. Because if you start in the deep end, then they're just gonna get lost and frustrated and will go away. With tutorials in a fighting game, I don't think the focus should be on, let's try to make this person a professional. The focus should be on, let's create the spark to make this person a part of this community.
Right.
Yeah? Instead of training wheels characters, give that spark through teaching, through education. It's really important. And the more you try to force it through a character through introducing characters that don't need to really use fundamentals to be successful, the more you damage the game ultimately. I just feel like priorities are backwards. I mean, hire a writer to have a good story. Yeah. Talk, and for the competitive side, talk to players, like competitive players, and get their perspective. Get good netcode so that people have an environment to actually play properly. Get it like someone who actually knows how to teach to do tutorials properly. Like these elements all need to be there.
Yeah.
And there's this assumption that you don't need a good writer. You know, you don't really need someone who knows how to, you know, it's just frustrating. It's frustrating.
Yeah, but I guess it goes back to that, their belief in like what the casuals need and what they want. But a lot of people seem to be mentioning MK11 tutorial mode, saying it's really exemplary. I haven't tried it. Have you?
Sorry, is this Mortal Kombat 11?
Yeah.
I played it a bit, and I thought it was okay. It teaches you how to play the game. Again, I think I found it a little bit sterile, and it didn't really stand out in my mind. I honestly think that the best way to teach fundamentals is through the story modes.
Right.
And yeah, you know, and then you have specific character tutorials for whatever your taste, whatever your character.
Right.
And those should be, you know, again, structured organically, starting with big concepts, general overview, then going into granular details. Yeah, I know the MK11 one was okay, but again, as I said, I don't think a single fighting game has done this properly yet.
I think you're probably right there. And I'm just looking at the watch here, and it's this effect that's always there when I talk to you, where I'm like, I think we've talked for 20 minutes, and then turns out, oh, 2 hours. So we've been talking for 1 hour and 5 minutes. I was going to try to keep it to 40 minutes, but yeah, time flies. Great conversations, and I still feel like we barely covered like what I wanted to cover, but it was a good talk. But we did jump a lot, but there was a lot of interesting things I wanted to get your take on, however, so I'm kind of happy it was all over the place.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we didn't plan this, and it's kind of the nature of the beast, really. But as ever, it's always a pleasure to talk to you, man. I think that the idea was to talk about Season 4, but we got derailed.
No, exactly. Like, Season 4 for a while, but then you just want to talk about these fundamental issues within the game. And of course, that presentation.
Season 4's an opportunity to fix that. Yeah.
So when do you think we'll get more news? Do you think like the coming week or 2 weeks we're gonna get a proper reveal of Kunimitsu?
Is it Kunimitsu? I mean, it's probably Kunimitsu. We're probably gonna get Kunimitsu. We're probably gonna get Yakuza character because of that whole Matsuya thing in Harada's tweet. If it's just Kunimitsu and Kiryu, I imagine it'll be Kiryu, then that's cool. Again, the focus in the trailer wasn't about characters, it was more about functionality, and I don't think we'll get that many characters. Max 2 or 3, and I think it should be that way. This game doesn't need any more characters.
Yeah. No, to say the least, it's super bloated, and it's like broken, I would say, in that who the hell has the time to learn all of these characters? But I love it. I think I said this to you yesterday, that you have this one part of your brain that's completely convinced that don't put in any more characters. That would be very counterproductive, and I would hate it. And then you just see a character reveal trailer, and you go 5-year-old again, and you go, oh, that's so hype. You know, it's like those two parts of my brain, they don't work well together. It's like, yeah.
For example, I would love, or one part of me would love to see June, because I like June as a character. And I said this last time, I'd love to see that June Kazumi Ghost Mom face-off. I think that'd be really fun. But this is Season 4, right? Like, I think it'll be she's so integral to the story that they would have to release an entire story chapter to, like, the ramifications of June being in this game. You can't just plop her in at Season 4. You know, she has to be in.
I like the phrase.
You know,
yeah.
Plop her in, yeah.
Plop it in.
Like, it would cheapen the character. Like, if she does come back, it has to be like central to the story of Tekken 8.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think if you're gonna use June again, it should be in a very, very proper and calculated way. So I heard you interpreted the end of a trailer where it says after darkness there's light or something, and you said, "Oh, June's coming," and I was like, "I think you're being optimistic." But it's June.
Yeah. I certainly did interpret that. Right.
I was just joking. I just saw a lot of people on Twitter were saying like, "Oh, that's confirmation on June," and I'm like, or that fist with Kazuya, like, that's Kiryu, and I'm like, what? What about that fist has anything to do with Kiryu? But yeah, it's amazing.
I think that's a bit of a stretch. I think just a little bit,
just a tiny bit. Yeah. But yeah, I gotta kick you off, unfortunately. I gotta record other stuff as well. But thank you so much for devoting this time to me here. I really appreciate it. And so happy again for Lasted Salami, man.
Hey, it's always a pleasure. It's always so much fun talking with you. As you mentioned, time always flies by. So thanks for having me on.
Yeah, we should do this soon again. Take care, man.
Okay. Take care.
Bye.